Hello and welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. Another Kennedy is testifying before the Senate Finance Committee today. It's day one of RFK Jr.'s senatorial dance, trying to get critical votes to confirm him because as he is one of the most interesting people in President Trump's cabinet sphere, he's also arguably the most controversial. And I think he's going to have a harder time than Pete Hegseth, who cleared the confirmation process by the skin of his teeth. Pete obviously took in a lot of fire over his personal life and some of his past issues with the ladies. But I think he handled himself very, very well. He is a redeemed person. His wife was by his side. And when it came to answering for his duties as Secretary of Defense, I thought he did a very, very good job of, showing his depth of knowledge about the Defense Department, but also explaining what his service and the uniqueness of his service, being, of lower rank than other people who have served in that position, how that would benefit the armed forces and the Defense Department as a whole. So Pete did a great job. RFK Jr. is going to have different problems for different reasons. Interestingly, if you remember the podcast I did with Maureen Callahan a few months ago when her book came out, there was some new information that came to light about RFK Jr.'s personal life. And, my feeling at the time was if this stuff is true, he can't be president. But he's not running for president. He is looking to be appointed as the Secretary for Health and Human Services, which is a massive department. And, there are Democrats who are really mad at him because he endorsed Trump. And there were probably a lot of independents who hate the political process, who despise both parties, who took RFK Jr. at his word and, also moved their vote to Donald Trump as well. So you could argue that he won the election for Trump, therefore Democrats are really mad. There are also, a lot of, I guess, pro-vax Democrats, which is fine. I vaccinated my children. I am a fan of medical technology, and I think some of the vaccines that we have are life-saving and incredible. I hate the process that we underwent in this country for the COVID vaccine, which didn't keep us safe from the virus. For those of us who had been vaxxed and got sicker the second time, that's not how the measles or polio vaccines works. And either the mRNA technology sucks, or you had a vaccine that wasn't ready, that was forced upon us. RFK Jr. is one of those people who is pushing back skeptically. I am always a fan if you think that government doesn't always have your best interest at heart, and if you think that there is governmental abuse of power and there are incompetent people in government who just want to concentrate power for their own ends and means, then you should want skeptics in government. That is one of my favorite things about some of these people who are nominees for these cabinet positions, because they are naturally skeptical of the departments that they will run. And that means that they will look at them with a critical eye and hopefully make them smaller and less intrusive. So there are a lot of statist, big government people in the Democrat Party, like Elizabeth Warren, who's pushed back really hard on RFK Jr. today about a financial stake he might have in some of the lawsuits and, potentially some of the companies that he would represent. And she wants pushback there. And I don't disagree with that. I think if you are in a position of power and there are conflicts of interest, you should not be enriching yourself while you are holding that office.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
But where was Elizabeth Warren about Nancy Pelosi's stock trades? If these people are going to be consistent with, their vapors and their histrionics, then they have to apply it across the parties. That's the only way we will trust them. Elizabeth Warren is a lot richer since she became a senator. Bernie Sanders is a lot richer since he became a senator, since he stepped aside and allowed his lady, Hillary Clinton, to ascend to the Democrat nomination. But these people, they're pushing back on RFK Jr. He clearly does not have their votes. Bernie's mad because a company where RFK Jr. sat on the board was selling anti-vax onesies to parents that said things like unvaxxed and unafraid. And, RFK Jr., who does very much look like an angry raisin today, said, I resigned from the board of that company. And Bernie's like, why are you so anti-vax? The vax is a great. America is not healthy because we need Medicare for all. And that's not true. RFK Jr. has also committed to not cutting Medicare, which we're going to have to at some point, but we will have to streamline these behemoth entities like Health and Human Services if they are going to keep going and serve Americans in the future. You cannot just throw more money at problems. That is why Doge was invented. And that's why you want a skeptic in there looking at these things, trying to streamline them, cutting out redundancies, and figuring out, what is the function of government. I like the side of RFK Jr. that is skeptical and somewhat libertarian. I like the side of RFK Jr. that wants to push back against big pharma and big government. I think that is taking us philosophically and practically in the right direction. But he does have enemies on both sides. And on the right, there are a lot of conservative Republican senators who want him to answer for the cheerleading that he's done as a pro-abortionist in the past. And, he will be lording over the institution that decides whether or not women can get morning after pills. And there are conservatives who have a big problem with that. I think there are a lot of young women who want to keep those pills on the market because many of them who do become pregnant for one reason or another don't want to take those pregnancies to term and would rather terminate before there is implantation, which I think I'm somewhat on board with. I just wish there were fewer pregnancies to begin with if people aren't ready to have babies, but that is not the role of government from my point of view. My worry about RFK Jr., my personal worry is, yes, I think America should be healthy again. I think we should all be making better choices. But those choices, good and bad, are up to the individual. I don't like the idea of a government entity telling you how much to work out, how much to eat, not to be sedentary, not to smoke, and somehow that all adding up to a social credit score where you will not have freedom of movement or association if the government and his department deems that you are unhealthy. That's what worries me, that they will try to keep me from putting certain things in my body, and they will also try to force me into programs that they deem healthy. I think that could be, and it's just like any big government program. It starts off with good intentions, and it ends up with really, really bad unintended consequences and outcomes. And we've had enough of that over the decades and over the centuries to see that that always ends badly. It's like a form of communism. We all know communism ends badly. Again, it may start out with good intentions, but it never manifests that way, and neither would a big government get healthy program. This has to be left up to the individuals. I don't think there are as many senators right now in committee who are as worried about that as I am. So, hey, man, if I'm going to save the world, I got to do it as a lonely individual. I will die on this hill, and I'll do it for you and your big, juicy, fat ass. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. Does RFK Jr. get confirmed? In the end, I don't think he does. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with the Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.